Welcome back. Well, our first part of the lecture, we've started the social reform movement and we've covered the Brahmo Samaj and Henry Vivian Desrosiers, Young Bengal. Yes, I did, Shreyas. I hope all of you are now all up to speed, had something to eat, because now comes the little bit painful part, which is organizations and their basic understandings. Meaning, Aditya, what do you mean by that? We'll wait 2-3 minutes. Early intervention done. Early intervention, reason, Young Bengal, and Brahmo Samaj done. 4 things we've covered already. I have no idea about that, Aditya. I have no idea what you're saying. I didn't know the interface was like that. World history, colonization of Southeast nations. Yes. You have to remember Indochina. Parshuram, how long is your week? How long is your week? 5-day working, 6-day working? Well, Ankit, I hope that you are able to change the world soon. Where will we study opium wars? Nowhere, because it is optional level understanding. Yes, so you have 5 days working. So you have Saturday, Sunday, which is left. So you are spending that here studying. So the point is that 2 days you are here with me, 5 days you are working. So what you have to do is that when you are with me here, you have to be extra attentive so that you don't have to revise like others, or the revision cycle has to be only one. For me also 5 days. If you're a working professional, this is the basic concept that when everybody may be thinking of 2 revisions or 3 revisions, you have to make sure that your revision cycle is the lowest. So if they are at 100% attention, you have to be at 300% attention, so that you don't need to revise, or you are revising as we go on, or you are revising with me in that regard. Now thereafter, in the weekday, the 5 days which you have, what you have to do is that you have to make sure that every night, at least 15-20 minutes, you are going through the basic facts which are given in the PPT. So that if it is possible, in the morning 15 minutes and in the night 15 minutes. Conceptual clarity you will develop over Saturday, Sunday. Factually, you have to revise. I'm only telling you about history. You have to revise 15 minutes, 15 minutes. And once our cycle is over, when you've covered all the topics, you will get more time on Saturday, Sunday. That is where you will revise and evaluate yourself. So it's about having more productive 15 minutes rule, as it is called. You have to have more productive Saturday Sundays, and I know it will be exhausting because you are sitting with me throughout the day. But on the weekdays, wherever you get a little bit amount of time, go through the facts, learn them. Learning can happen, little bit of learning can happen on the days. But you obviously are at a disadvantage, so you have to put in more effort automatically. Whatever questions come to social reform movement, both prelims and mains both. I have Malikarjun. I'll forward you the whole email chain. We are identifying her. I know what you told me. We are identifying her. Who is that Anjali which you're talking about? So that is in progress. You will get some feedback for sure very quickly. Sir, in 15 minutes, it's not possible to revise from beginning. So I didn't say that you revise everything in 15 minutes. You keep on keeping track. You have 100% to learn. You learn 5% each day. But obviously, once you've covered 15%, you don't go back. You keep on covering that 5. It's not that you can start from beginning. That is not how it's going to work. You can, Shiva, you can. Sir, how depth is social reform in optional? That is a totally Gokul. The question nature changes quite a lot. The whole question nature changes. Anil, soon something is under proposal, something is under consideration, but that will take time. That will take time. But soon you already have the option to take the recorded lectures. Nand, I have already answered you how many questions from social reform movement. 1 to 2 questions in mains have come. 1 to 2 questions in prelims will come. Can and cannot be there, that's totally your call. Or the UPSC's call. So they have asked questions for sure. We wait 1 more minute and then we'll begin. You can do that. You can use 15 minutes rule for any subject. Good evening. Good evening. Okay. So we have covered 2 organizations, and the only type of discussion we have today is covering these different bodies as quickly as possible. Because other than that, we don't really have any purpose with regards to it. And as I told you, it's a factual portion. I've already taught you the theoretics of it, the theatricals of it, or what is the gimmick behind it. Now we are trying to just move on and covering the personalities which you need to know. After Henry Vivian DeRosio, you have Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. He is a prolific man known for 2 to 3 very important things. One is girls' education, because he will be the commissioner, small inspector of schools, in which he will develop 35 girls' schools itself, and he will make sure that girls' education becomes a priority. He is also very instrumental in widow remarriage. The act which will be passed in 1856 will have a lot of ramifications of what Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar talked about. And last is Bengali language itself. Bengali language, as you know it today, is basically Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar's grant to the Bengali community, because he's the one who developed the prose form. The primer means what teachers used to teach students. Primer has also been developed by Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. Generally, he was against the issue of child marriage. Widow remarriage is supported. But he is also the one who very actively made sure that caste system was also challenged. Because when he will become the principal of Sanskrit College, he will basically open it up for everyone, not just the Brahmin community. And he will also try to reconcile Western education with the concept of what we call as traditional education. He will say that we should read the Vedas, but we should also understand modern sciences. So Ishwarchandra Vidyasagar does not have an organization, but as a personality, he is out of the world. Wherein emancipation within freedom of women was something very important for him. Education amongst girls is something again he'll talk about. Further, as I told you, developed, organized 35 girls' schools out of his own expense. He was the secretary of the Bethune School, developed by Bethune himself. He will again talk about women's education. Was against polygamy, one man having multiple wives, and he will become principal of Sanskrit College itself. Open the gates for non-Brahmins. We'll talk about the concept of traditional schools and modern education. He will also become the one who will devise the Bengali primer, which is still today used to teach Bengali. So Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar is that man who brought in liberalism and modernity, education and social reform together. And he opposed caste distinctions and discrimination of the lower caste. Now tell me one thing. After whatever we've done till this point, are they all discussing or talking about different things? Be it Raja Ram Mohan Roy, be it Derozio, or be it, for example, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. Are they talking about different things? No, they're not talking about different things. All of them are talking about the same basic issues. These basic issues be education for girls, be it widow remarriage, or be it child marriage, or be it caste and varna, or be it the pandits who are misinterpreting religion. What I want to argue here is that, for example, in the examination, an organization comes which you don't know, which I also don't know, or some random organization. If you write all of these points for that organization, will it turn out to be true, or would it turn out to be a good answer? Basically, if you develop a template, adding these points, leaving, for example, polygamy out, but sati and child marriage, there is a pattern. No, even if it is a reformist or revivalist, they will always talk about the same thing. That is a point I'm trying to prove to you for a very long time now, that be it a revivalist or be it a reformist, they will always talk about the same goals. If you can understand this point, you will understand this portion itself. They all will talk about the same things, except for one man who will oppose sati, which I will tell you as a form of exception. All of them are talking about the same thing: girls' education, widow remarriage, child marriage, caste, varna, pandit, same thing. There are smaller differences, but all our social evils are identified. So understand this point, that if you get stuck somewhere in the examination, rather than leaving that question, just write a generic answer, replacing the name of that organization with the organization which you've seen in the examination. Most probably you will get good marks, because it would be true for it, because none of these organizations are different vis-a-vis goals. Their path may be different, but the core will remain always the same. Are you getting my point? That you can have a basic template in your mind which will be true for most of them. So from Derozio is a little bit different, because he's not the one who's talking about social reform. He's talking about anti-colonialism. Raja Ram Mohan Rai, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, and now let's talk about Pratna Samaj. Pratna Samaj is exactly the same. Pratna Samaj is basically when K.C. Sen went to Bombay and started to spread Brahmoism. The form it took in the Maharashtra sector was Pratna Samaj. We founded by two members, Dadoba Tangirkar or Tardharkar and Atmaram Pandurang. Atmaram Pandurang is the one you will find everywhere. But it is known not because of these two men, but because of two very important people who were associated with it. First, Narayan Chandavarkar, who was a very important Sanskrit scholar, and then Justice Mahadev Govind Ranade or MG Ranade. He was a prolific personality, a judge in the British system itself, and the ideas of Brahmoism were what the Pratna Samaj was based on. But what is interesting here is that Pratna Samaj never split because MG Ranade and Atmaram Pandurang and other members never went beyond the concept of Brahmoism, remained a little bit conservative, and never tried to challenge it fundamentally. So the main reformers were mostly intellectuals who advocated social system, a new social system reform for Hindus. But again, their concept remains the same, which is what? Monotheism, socio-cultural reform. But unlike Devendranath Tagore, who used to say that the Vedas cannot be challenged, they said that vegans can be challenged. They will take Tukaram and Namdev, two Sufi saints, as their inspiration. They will talk about all religions being the same. They will also create a distinction with the Bengali Brahmos. Why? Because he said that it did not, or the Brahmo Samaj did not want to break from the past and cease to connect with our society. So modernism was accommodated within traditional space. Basically, they never became too radical. They never became too radical. And this is why the Brahmo Samaj split, but the Pratna Samaj never split. Contribution, same. Position of women, depressed classes. Marriage of widow, condemned caste system, child marriage, infanticide, equal opportunity to women. So are these ideas again radically different from Brahmo Samaj or Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar or anybody else who we've discussed till this point? That is what I'm trying to argue to you, that their goals remain always the same. They all talk about the same thing. They all contribute in the same direction, overlapping each other everywhere. Now comes a very important personality, Swami Vivekanand and Ramakrishna Mission. Now, please pay attention. I have to tell you the basics of Swami Vivekanand and why Ramakrishna Mission is so important. Now, see, Ramakrishna Mission is named after a person called Ramakrishna Paramhans. And Ramakrishna Paramhans, he's a saint. You can we don't call him a revivalist or reformist. But his idea is that Hinduism had certain problems and that could be changed. But the problem which he identified was that we all are ignorant. We all are ignorant. Ramakrishna Paramhans argued that in a very important line, service to people is service of God. Or you can say service of people is service of God. Basically, what he's arguing is that if you help people, you are helping yourself and you're doing service to God. Ramakrishna Paramhans had a very important point he was trying to make, which is that we tend to forget who are we working for. He used to say that if you are very capable, a millionaire, and have a lot of money, and if still hunger and distress and poverty exist in India or anywhere, then you are the real traitor. Because you have the capability of removing that hunger, but you aren't. We have seen ourselves that people would be dying outside villages, outside temples, outside institutions. They will not get 1 ounce of food. and crores of rupees, thousands of tons of food will be wasted within institutions, be it temples, be it dharamshalas, be it these religious institutions. Beggars would be lying around, but we will not give that money to the beggar, but rather to the already very, very, very wealthy trust or the priests. Ramakrishna Paramhans did not like that. He believed that if you are doing good for the people who are already good, then you're not doing good for yourself or to God. This was a very radical ideology which he developed, and that was very relevant and is still relevant today, because we all believe in that capitalist notion of helping ourselves before helping others. Ramakrishna Paramhans that way was a very influential man, and his ideas were very influential. Now, vis-a-vis this, you have Swami Vivekananda. He lost his father at a very young age. His father was a lawyer, and he will be in a lot of dilemma and a lot of distress, and he will meet Ramakrishna Paramhans and get influenced by him. Once Ramakrishna Paramhans will die, Swami Vivekananda will get 2-3 very important opportunities to talk about Ramakrishna or Paramhansa's ideas. First, he is known to have gone to the most important, the Conference of Religions in Chicago, America, where he talked about universal brotherhood and sisterhood. And when he did come back from the West, he developed what is called the Ramakrishna Mission in Bellur Math it is called. And he developed a new concept called Neo Vedanta. Neo Vedanta, in which action was important and service to people was more important. And it is called Neo Vedanta. See, Vedanta means Vedo ka ant Upanishads. Vedo ka ant Upanishads. So Neo Vedanta. Now, Neo Vedanta is based on Upanishadic and Vedic philosophy, but it changes the concept of just doing rituals and sacrifices to help people instead. But whilst Vivekananda is talked about quite a lot nowadays, one point which Vivekananda argued and said nobody wants to remember it. He believed that there's no point of conversion to any religion because all religions are the same. But like the ominous nationalist he said that the only way India goes forward, our motherland goes forward, the only way we can protect our motherland is when Islam and Hinduism come together. When the Hindus and the Muslims come together, it is only then that India can be protected, we can be protected. These words will be very relevant because that is what the British did later to divide us and to fight amongst us. But Vivekananda's ideology till today remains relevant in certain quarters and in certain livelihood fashions. But Bellur Math is the legacy of Swami Vivekananda, and we have Vivekananda centers also, we have Ramakrishna Mission also. And Bellur Math till today works for the concept of service to nation via service to people, service to God via service of people, and till today tries to work to remove poverty and help others in distress. This is something which we still don't forget or should not forget in that regard, that he created a new understanding itself. So when we talk about Vivekananda, Neo Vedanta, service of people is service to God, is something which you have to remember generally, and the other details I'm going to discuss with you generally. So this word Neo Vedanta, as soon as you see it in the paper, it means Swami Vivekananda only. So Ramakrishna Paramhans is a renunciant, basically a wanderer, a saint, and based on his understanding of other faiths also, he came up with this concept that though there are many roads to God, salvation, which is moksha, can only come when there is service of man was service of God. For man was the embodiment of God. Basically, if you are helping people, you are helping God because God resides in people. And he used to say, so long as the millions live in hunger and ignorance, it hold every man as a traitor who, having been educated at their expense, pays no at least heed to them. So basically, you are a blot on human history. You are a blot on human mankind if you have the capability of changing the world, but you can't. Based on these ideologies, Narendranath, the original name of Swami Vivekananda, he was born in 1863. His father was a very good lawyer, received English education, mission school in Calcutta, briefly a part of the Sadharan Brahmo Samaj also, but became a disciple of Ramakrishna Paramhans. He will thereafter, after his death, take a lot of interest in spreading the ideas of Ramakrishna Paramhans himself in 1886. He will travel to the south in 1892, take the title of Swami Vivekanand on the suggestion of a princely state king who said that you should have this name not as Narendranath but Swami Vivekanand. Traveled to the US in 1893 and spent 4 years there to come back and develop the ideological outlook into what is called as Bellur Mutt or Ramakrishna Mission. Argument: action is important. Thinking is not always important, action is important. You need to talk about, he always used to talk about oneness of religion, and he believed that religious conversion is a futile concept because every religion is the same. But one thing which nobody talks about him today is that the only way our motherland goes forward is when Hinduism and Islam, the two great systems, come together and then only move forward. He again condemned the caste system, talked about superstition, he talked about widow remarriage, he talked about child marriage, how it should be stopped. He again is a reformer, so the basic ideas remain the same. So action is more important than you saying that I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, but nothing happens. Rather, you need to act at the time of need to basically show. He also talked about liberty, equality, free thinking, but his ideas are what we call as Neo-Vedanta. The best form of worship to God is service to the people. And he is considered as a nationalist and a reformer because he wanted India about, he talked about what we call as self-determination. Swaraj in a way. He talked about three very important things in day-to-day life, which is still today followed by the Vivekananda missions and Ramakrishna mission. Paramarth, which is understanding. Vyavahar, which is behavior. Spirituality, which is meditation. All of these are embodied in an organization he will form on 1st May 1897, which is called the Ramakrishna Mission. And Vivekananda will be the first president of this, established at Bellur Mutt. The mission till today talks about God as the ultimate goal, talks about Atma being the true self, and only when you remove ignorance. Ignorance is ignorance of the fact that you are capable of doing good for others. Through yoga, through harmony of religions, they still talk about one thing, which is service to people is service to God. And only when you help the poor and downtrodden, you move forward. Paramarth means good understanding. So, very simply, Ramakrishna Mission, Swami Vivekananda, till today, act as a very important concept within our society. Maybe some of you are exposed to it. Maybe some of you have no idea what this organization is. But till today, it is considered a very, very important organization because it takes these ideas forwards. However, there is selective reading of Vivekananda also sometimes, because Vivekananda never talked about conflict amongst religions. Vivekananda was the first to point out unity and the fact that if we become communal, we will destroy our nation, which we did also. And we had to be influenced by Vivekananda in such a way that we could move beyond that concept itself. So in his Chicago speech itself, he had already argued that all religions come together and all religions are together. So there is no point fighting in the name of religion, because it makes no sense. Because it makes no sense at all. So be very, very clear that he was very clear in what he wanted. And what he wanted was that we all come together as one and move together in that direction, in that sense. So I hope you will learn something from him today. And we still need to learn further, because we are still stuck in the same thing, which is that we are still not ready to accept that India only moves forward when all Indians move forward. So your conception of India needs to take everybody together, and Vivekananda still today remains relevant in that context. Are we clear about this? Yes or no? Yes, perfect. Now we have minor organizations such as action is always important, and for a UPSC aspirant, it is equally more important. Vivekananda's ideas cannot be more relevant for a UPSC aspirant than ever, because he used to always say that you just you think quite a lot, and that happens. I can agree that you think quite a lot. I will do this, I will do that. No, act. I will revise. Maybe you will not cover everything. Maybe you will not cover everything, but at least you will start. It's the same with answer writing, it's the same with the preparation. And if Vivekananda talked about one thing, which was discipline, if you are disciplined in your life, you will always succeed in it, because this examination only wants discipline for 12 months or 1.5 years. Disciplined study, dedication, that's it. Nobody who clears this examination is extraordinary. Nobody who clears this examination is out of the world, or the people who are extraordinary are making Chandrayaan 3 reach the moon. What this examination needs is only basic dedication and discipline. There were two things which Neo Vedanta always talked about. So understand one thing very clearly, that you are the future of this nation. And if by talking about these personalities, if by learning history, you can remember one thing or learn one thing, is that if you will divide yourself before you divide, someone else divides you, we have already lost the game. India will only move forward with everybody going together. You are going to be a public servant. And remember that public does not have a religion, a caste, a varna, or a face, or a gender. Public is public. So remember what he said, because it may help you in writing a better essay also. In essay paper, these are the ideas which are used. So you can use it also in that sense. That is why till today Vivekananda is revered, because he said something which is till today relevant in that sense. Now comes Deva Samaj. Now these are minor organizations. Deva Samaj, he started as a theistic, moral-based organization, which is Shiv Narayan Agnihotri. But by the time he actually ended developing this concept, he became an atheist. This is basically stop believing in God only. His idea was morality is important, guru is important, not taking bribe, non-vegetarian food is not good. He is basically, this organization is basically a moral organization which talks about morality. Shiv Narayan Agnihotri, part of the Brahmo Samaj, 1887 will form the Deva Samaj. He will start as a theistic society, later become atheistic. Society emphasized on the eternity of soul, supremacy of the guru, and need for good action. Why are these all in Bengal sector? Because Bengal was where the British were more entrenched. Bengal is where the impact of modern education was the most. and Bengal is where the middle class intelligentsia also emerged. Bengal is also going to be the epicenter of nationalism. Bengal is going to be the epicenter of nationalism with Swadeshi movement, with the concept of the Surat split, which will happen extremist moderates. It is only under HRA, HSRA that nationalism will move away from Bengal. But Bengal, the reason to split Bengal, the reason to have partition of Bengal was because of this only. Because Bengal was emerging as the epicenter. The most important impact of the British was on the Bengalis only, because their capital was Calcutta. Once they move out of Calcutta to Delhi in 1911, then Bengal will go into a little bit of a hibernation phase. Hibernation phase. So between 1772 and 1911, they will be operating from Calcutta, from Bengal. Right? Answers your question, Jayant. Well, Akash has quoted Swami Vivekananda very, very well. Books are infinite in number and time is short. The secret of knowledge is to take what is essential. Well, that is called smart study in UPSC preparation. There is no end to anything. There is no end to any book. Yes, Vivek, in a way. Only if you understand what is important, what is not important. The disclaimer which I gave to you in the beginning is what Swami Vivekananda is saying. Do what is necessary, move on, don't become emotional over that. Now, what does the Deva Samaj ask for? Avoiding intoxicant, non-vegetarian food should be avoided, observing non-violence. Deva Shastra is something which was developed by him as a book, not relevant today because atheistic organization, morality based, nothing really. But we've discussed, if you can see, we've discussed Brahmo Samaj, Young Bengal, we've discussed Ramakrishna Mission, Vivekanand, and we have discussed as major Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. Four major, this is minor, Deva Samaj. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How is it linked to non-vegetarian food? Violence against animals is considered to be not good. Now you will see that the organization names will change, and as we go towards the national movement, that's the target will change. You see, till this point, none of the organizations use the word Indian. Indian Social Conference. This is a giveaway that if it says India, it means that it is in a nationalistic organization. This was by M.G. Ranade and Raghunath Rao, and for the love of God, this is a different Raghunath Rao. Has no connection with Marathas. So this Raghunath Rao and M.G. Ranade, they used to meet in the sidelines of the INC meetings, and they used to talk about again socio and economic reforms, polygamy, intercaste marriage. So their contributions are on the same lines also, which is they used to embody the social issues of that period. INC used to talk about political, they used to talk about social. Again, minor organization, Indian National, this is called Indian Social Conference, Indian Social Conference, ISC. Then you have two very important personalities. One is called Behramji Malabari and the other one is Pandita Ramabai. Now, Behramji Malabari is considered to be a master in Gujarati language. He was a prolific writer, had been an editor of every newspaper possible at that point of time. He is the one who was instrumental in 2 to 3 things. Education for women. He was literally against child marriage. And is also linked to a very interesting act which is called the Age of Consent Act, 1891. He edited different books, he's a poet and comes from the Gujarati community of the Parsis, Behramji Malabari. Gujarati, this should be 1875. Advocated for rights of women and child marriage, but his most important concept was age of consent. Now, basically, this is a corollary of child marriage. wherein because children were being married to grown men, specifically the girl child was married to grown men, and there was a major age difference between the men and the women, or men and the girl. He talked about the age of consent. He talked about the age of consent, wherein he said that when is the girl child ready to consent for any form of sexual activity within the marriage itself. So the Age of Consent Act created this question that the girl child should have the right to say no, and she should be a consenting adult to be part of that marriage and in any reproductive capacity. And that is something which Mehramji Malabari made sure became an issue by writing after writing after writing. He literally wrote about this issue so much that the British had to introduce an act by 1891. He, in that sense, was very, very pioneering because he will understand that women have more rights than what we really think. And he will develop with his friend, Diwan Dayaram Gidumal. They will develop what is called the Seva Sadan. Till today exists in 1908. And this act will basically be for women who were exploited by the society. They could find refuge in the Seva Sadan. And the next two personalities are the same in that regard, wherein Pandita Ramabai, Pandita Ramabai also developed the same thing. This is same line written twice. Pandita Ramabai Saraswati, that way, is known for her very, very, very strong intellect. Married at a very young age, lost her husband. The parents also died very young. But born into a Chitpavan Brahmin family, she knew every scripture by heart. She could recite the Vedas and the Upanishads randomly at any moment. That's why she was given this title of Saraswati by the Calcutta University for her level of intellect to remember the Vedas. But her contribution was that she will develop the Arya Mahila Samaj, which will be again about women's education and stopping child marriage. And more than that, you have the interesting fact that you have Ramabai Ranade. Now remember, Pandita Ramabai and Ramabai Ranade are different. Pandita Ramabai is Pandita Ramabai. Ramabai Ranade is the wife of of MG Ranade. Now, just give me 1 second. Just give me 1 second. Okay. Pointed out what you had told me. So don't worry. Getting it resolved. Yeah, as I was saying, that Pandita Ramabai is the Ramabai Saraswati herself, and you have Ramabai Ranade, who is the wife of MG Ranade. Please do not confuse these two women in the examination. It will be a crime that way. It will be a crime that way because They're two different women. But what is interesting is that Ramabai Ranade got associated with the Seva Sadan, the organization which we discussed just recently. Seva Sadan and Arya Mahila Samaj both worked to take the women's issue forward. So please remember this point totally clearly, that the concept of women being discarded by society was something which was very close to either of them. Both wanted to make sure that women's issue was taken forward. Women's issue was taken forward and made sure that discarded women who were not getting space within the society itself got a space as a different entity altogether. Akash, in a way. So we have Malabari and Ramabai Ranade. Three people who are related to women and the way they were discarded by society. Thereafter, you have another important personality. You understand the difference between the two? You understand how three are related to each other? Yes? Do we understand it? Yes, sir. Okay. Now, the next person is called Gopal Hari Deshmukh, also called Lokhitwadi. Lokhitwadi, wherein he was again a prolific writer, named as pen name as Lokhitwadi. Lokhit means for the good of the people. He was from again the Chitpavan Brahmin family, as one of Akash pointed out. Most of them are from upper caste because the access to education was something which was necessary. And coming from Pune English medium, he again is a social reformer who talks about Maharashtra and specifically women and child and widow remarriage. But he used to say that if a religion does not allow for change, what is the difference between both Ramabai? Vivek, one is the wife of MG Ranade, other one is a woman who is related to the Arya Mahila Samaj, a social reformer herself. That is the difference. Not in a different language, not speaking in French. Fourth time I'm telling you. So, attacked Hindu orthodoxy, talked about religion being accommodative, and he will also write a very important weekly called Hitechu, in which he will talk about how reform or Indian reform can happen within religious fold itself. He had other periodicals also, Gyan Prakash, Hindu Prakash, Lokhitwadi, and he will write the famous letters in which he will highlight the dimensions of reform in India generally. The last major organization before I give you a break and then we can go to the revivalists are these two, which is two organizations which are very late. Servants of India Society. Now tell me, by looking at the name itself, they would be related to widow remarriage or pre-1857 or post-1857? They will be post because it is India. So you can see Gopal Krishna Gokhale 1905. And therefore his issues are also different. You have he along with after him it is Srinivasan Shastri will take it. The issues are totally different. For example, cause of the country is more important. Cause of the country. So you can see that they will talk about what? Opening hostel for tribal boys, primary schools, ashram, education, sanitation, healthcare, poverty, untouchability, and they were related to the INC in a way. And that will initially they will be related to the INC, but will stay away from the political activities of the INC. INC was political, they were social. Same will be true for the next organization, which is Social Service League. Social service is NM Joshi, very important, very important personality when it comes to the left in India. He is again a follower of Gopal Krishna Gokhale in Bombay. And he again talks about schools, libraries, reading rooms, day nursing, cooperative society, swamp dwellers, the works of medical relief for boys club, scout corps. All India Trade Union will be formed by him in 1920. So these organizations are reformist, but in a different way altogether. Now, before we move to revivalists, I want to summarize everything what we've done. We've done Brahmo Samaj. Anybody has any issue in Brahmo Samaj? Atmiya Samaj, Brahmo Samaj of India, Sadharan Brahmo Samaj, Adi Brahmo Samaj. Does anybody have any issue there? All clear? Perfect. Then we did Henry Vivian Derozio and Young Bengal, two ahead of their own time. Anybody has any issue there? Anybody? All clear, perfect. Henry Vivian Derozio, Young Bengal. Then we did Ramakrishna Mission, Vivekanand. Anybody has any issue there? Reason for split in Brahmo Samaj because of K.C. Sen and Debendranath Tagore's fight. Vivek, you weren't there. You came late. Then Vivekanand, service to people is service to nation. Then we discussed the concept of Malabari and Pandita Ramabai. Here we discuss Seva Sadan and Arya Mahila Samaj. Anybody here has any issue? Gokul, I'm going as per the slowest speed possible. I'm not going very fast. I'm going very slow for this area. Literally slowest possible. If you really want me to study, read each and every point out and then say the same thing, that's a separate issue altogether. I don't think I'm going fast. I can go even slower. Them dheere dheere, if you want. Now, I'm already very slow. It's actually very slow. This much time is not even needed in this. You can see I can actually not even tell you something. Organization name, aim. That's it. So Malabari Seva Sadan, this is also not problematic. Then we have the concept of Prathna Samaj. Anybody any issue here? No, sir. Very good. Then we have Servants of India Society. This is one set. Servant of India Society. Indian Social Conference. And the one which we did last, which is Social Service League. Social Service League. Do you understand how they are different to these which I've discussed on this side? 6, 7, 8. They're all related to the later national movement. So they are not talking about socialist reform. They're talking about doing good for the nation. So they are nationalist or they're national orientation. And all of these people, all of them are related to widow, remarriage, the concept of child marriage, the concept of caste, pundits, and misinterpretation. They are talking about women, education. Their issues are different. Then the odd one out is Deva Samaj. That is the atheistic society, which becomes a moral society. Moral society. Smartna Samaj is related to no one else but M.G. Ranade, Atmaram Pandurang. So, we have done 9 such organizations. Anybody has any? I've left any one of them? No. The Brahmo Samaj, Vivian Derozio, Vivekanand, Malabari, Pratna Samaj. Oh, Gopal Hari Deshmukh. Gopal Hari Deshmukh. That who is also comes under this category. Now you can see that if you go through the book, it seems like a lot. But if you look at it, it is actually quite not a very long list. Maximum 10. The examiner will revolve around these only, which is, for example, Brahmo Samaj and Young Bengal has already come in the examination. I'll show you that question tomorrow. Vivekanand remains relevant to be asked in the examination. Pratna Samaj, Malabari, Pandita Ramabai, and Seva Sadan. These are areas which are generally important. Das Ashram again related to the Brahmo Samaj only. Now, this area UPSC will generally avoid. I can tell you why. Because if they have to ask questions on national movement, they will ask questions more relevant. But what I want to say is that the question comes except for them who are nationalist, anti-colonial. An answer for all of them remains the same. An answer for all of them remains the same. And he is an odd one out again. Arya Mahila Seva Sadan. So core remains the same. Other things keep on changing. Now, can you tell me that you are more or less on the same page with me, and this area seems to be a little bit better? Because this is an area in which students get emotional and start to chase the paper. And my job is to we should just go through this area as smoothly as possible, learn what we have to learn, and move ahead, because the questions will not be more than one, either mains or prelims, and we can manage it with the given information here. So now I'm trying to not see, I'm not trying to make you learn it. I'm trying to make you understand that there are patterns which are there, and those patterns can be managed in this way, in that sense. Are we clear about all of this? Agreed? So I'm very categorically trying to be in a certain space in which I'm trying to argue that you don't have to worry about it. Worry about it. Okay, perfect. So we'll take a break. We'll come back at 5 p.m. exactly. When we do, we'll start with revivalists. Here, the most important discussion is Arya Samaj, then two smaller Samajes, and then we move to Parsi, Muslim, Sikh. So you can see we are slowly but surely coming out of this unscathed, not wounded, and your patience is needed, which I know you have, to clear this area quickly as possible. So I can't go more slower. Quicker would mean that I would tell you to read it out, which I don't want to. Okay. So I'll see you at 5 p.m. 5:01. Now I've taken your 1 minute. I'll see you at 5:01. Cool? Perfect. See you. Welcome back. Sir, start. Come teach. Time wasting. 2 minutes. Very dedicated students. Very good. Very good. Very good. Very good. High level of commitment. 2 minutes also wasted is accounted for. So whoever will join after 10, because I waste 7 minutes or 10 minutes there also. Nation wants to know. Service of people is service of God is actually by Vivekanand. So I'm talking about Vivekanand only. It was picked up from Ramakrishna Paramhans. That is the core ideology. No, you can't have two different levels of dedication, right? You will join 15 minutes late fashionably, and 2 minutes is nahi, koi baat nahi. Perfect. Okay. Can we start our discussion again? Everybody's comfortable back? Okay. Yes, sir. I am confused between Ramaswamy and Ramakrishna. Which Ramaswamy and which Ramakrishna? Ramakrishna Paramhans, I've told you. What Ramaswamy? Reformists are clear, perfect. That is a very good thing. Give, weren't you there in the evening batch also with me? So evening batch, Monday to Friday, you do. Then you check if I'm teaching the same thing on Saturday, Sunday. He's talking about E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar. That I've not even taught only. It's a revision. That is good. You're giving the exam in most probably 2025, 26, I guess. I guess. It's dedication. It's a good strategy also. That is why we have one batch 7 times so that you can do it. That is why a 20-24% would not do what you're doing. That's a good strategy. That way, at least you're revising. If you have multiple years, why not become an expert in that subject? Why not? Ramaswamy Naikar, I think he's meaning that only. You told me your name is not Gib, but it comes as Gib only. Gib. You're talking about Ramaswamy Naikar. So Periyar E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar is a depressed class personality. He is related to self-respect movement, justice movement. We've not even discussed him right now. And this is a different person. That is a totally different person. Okay, we'll discuss him and then we'll talk about it. We have discussed 9 such organizations which reflect the revivalists. Now we have talked the reformists. Now we have to talk about the revivalists, wherein what was their motivation and dedication vis-a-vis these things. Now, revivalists, as I said, there are 3 basic organizations. Out of that, only the Arya Samaj is the one major one which will become problematic also later. Other than that, we have 2 other Jat, Path, Todak, Mal, and the other is called the Dharma Samaj. It's called the Dharma Samaj. Now, we'll understand first the Arya Samaj, and the Arya Samaj also, when you will look at it, you will then realize how revivalists and reformists are very easy and same to each other, are very similar to each other, but the way they look at it is totally different. So the personality who's related to the Arya Samaj is Swami Dayanand Saraswati. He was born in Morvi, which is a Gujarat-based small princely state. At a very young age, he gave up the family and started to wander with mendicants, with renunciants, sannyasis. And he joined the what are called the Saraswati Dandis. So you would have heard about this word, Dandi Maharaj, Dandi. There are certain types of saints who are called Dandi Maharajas or Dandi saints. They are very common if you have ever watched a telecast of the Kumbh Mela and all. They are very staunch saints and they are given a specific title of Dandis. So there are different types of Dandi Babas, and one of them is the Saraswati Dandis. And they will give him the word Dayananda. They will give him the name Dayanand, and therein comes Swami Dayanand Saraswati. Saraswati from the Saraswati Dandi. Dayanand is his name. And he will become the disciple of Swami Vajanand and then start to learn Vedanta. Again, same concept of Upanishadic thought. And in that sense, he is called a revivalist because he does not talk about reform. He says, let's go back to the Vedas. Let's base the religion itself on Vedas, purify Hinduism, and revive it from a degenerate state. This is what basically makes him a revivalist. He's trying to use 2-3 words. First, purify. Second, revive, and going back to the Vedas. This is what makes him different vis-a-vis reformists, because his agendas remain the same, but his way of talking about it is different. The name Saraswati comes from the Saraswati Dandis he joined. Dandis, as I told you, is an order of saints or sannyasis or fakirs. They're called Dandis. If you have never ever seen, then you should Google it. What are called Saraswati Dandis? They're Dandi Maharaj. You would have seen them with Trishuls. You would have seen them with a lot of what we call as the Kumbh Mela. You will see all these Dandis coming together. Dandi, there's a Saraswati Dandi, so the name Saraswati, the Dayanand name is given by the Saraswati Dandis, so it becomes Swami Dayanand Saraswati. Saraswati because of the group which he comes from, and he is basically disciple of Swami Vajanand. Now, Swami Dayanand Saraswati, himself is a very, very, very fine personality and knew what he was speaking quite a lot. He talked about the fact that this all concepts of what these priests talk about, which is Maya, Niyati, destiny, moksha, and all, is all just fraud. He was very, very against polytheism. Again, he's going to talk about one God. Polytheistic means multiple gods. He's going to talk about one God. He will remove idol worship. For him, again, going to the temple was something problematic. He will say that the Brahmin priests are the ones who are the problem. And he will also talk about Swaraj, that we should self-rule ourselves. But what is most interesting is that he did not ever denounce Western education. He never denounced Western education. And that is why when Dayanand Saraswati is going to travel the Gujarat and Bombay sector, in 1875, he will establish what is called the Arya Samaj, named after the Vedic writers, which is Aryan, Arya. Aryas are considered the people who wrote the Vedas. Bombay Arya Samaj is basically the first body which is created. So one thing is very clear, that his basic ideas remain the same. Caste system. He will talk about the marriageable age to be fixed at 25 and 16. Encourage intercaste marriage, widow remarriage. He will talk about untouchability caste. But one thing was that he will write a very important book which is called the Satyarth Prakash, in which he will document his own understanding, which is called the Swami Dayanand or Swami Dayanand Saraswati's ideas, which is called Satyarth Prakash, which is truth enlightens. Why Puranas were rejected? Because Puranic Hinduism, according to him, was the distortion of Vedic Brahmanism, which is the original form of Hinduism, and that is why he did not want to go to the Puranas. but backwards towards the Vedas. And now, Vivek, I know that you've done ancient medieval and you know what I mean by Vedic Brahmanism and what I mean by the concept of Puranic Hinduism. The students who don't know it, you have to wait for ancient medieval. I'll tell you. The first form is Vedic Brahmanism. Then it will become what we call as Puranic Hinduism. So they are rejecting Puranas to basically say that we have to go back to the Vedas. This is what is the concept of division between these two areas. So understand this point. The way he's talking about the same things is the same thing with what the revivalists and the reformists are talking about, the same thing. But now comes the most important concept. We know Dayanand Saraswati, we understand his ideology, we understand what he wanted to achieve, we understand that the Bombay Arya Samaj is the original Arya Samaj in the sense that this is what was established by Dayananda himself. Anybody has any issue till this point? You can see his issues remain the same. When ancient medieval weekend batch starts, that I don't know, but very soon. Bombay had Pratna Samaj, Arya Samaj, both. They were rivals. In a way, yes, you will see. Shreyans, I will tell you why. Because later, not under Dayanand Saraswati, later for sure. Are we clear about Dayanand Saraswati, his ideas, and Bombay Arya Samaj in 1875 to be the original one? To be the original one. Are we clear? No, Tina, it will come, not over. Are we clear about this? Yes or no? Yes, sir. Okay, now. Whilst this may be true, Arya Samaj will very quickly become problematic because Arya Samaj will develop its own branches in different provinces of India, and two branches will become one very significant for today and one very problematic for colonial history. One is called the Lahore Arya Samaj or Lahore Arya Samaj branch. And the other one is called the Gurukul branch, which was there in Haridwar. Now let's talk about first Lahore Arya Samaj branch. Lahore Arya Samaj branch wanted to develop Dayanand Saraswati's ideas forward, and a person called Lala Hansraj, after him the Hansraj College in Delhi is named. Lala Hansraj developed what is called the Dayanand Anglo-Vedic Trust and Schools, which are called DAV. Some of you may be from the schools or maybe a product of it, but you would know that DAV schools are one of the most sought after premier institutions today, and they are across India in every state and provide very quality education. So the Dayanand Anglo-Vedic Trust was actually developed by Lala Hansraj, and within the first 6 months, it will have 500 students who will get associated. And the curriculum of this school talks about both Western education, but there's also a lot of emphasis on spiritual development, morality, and that is added to the curriculum itself. And this branch will take the Dayanand Anglo-Vedic name very forward. Very, very forward. So Samaj got lacked central organization, but on 6 December 1883, Lahore Samaj will start to develop institutions. Lala Hansraj will say that he will become the principal without taking pay. And on 1st June 1886, the Dayanand Anglo-Vedic Trust and Management Society will be developed. And this trust will develop the Dayanand Anglo-Vedic schools. It will get affiliated by the Punjab University in 1889. And without any governmental support or not even one Englishman as faculty, this school will become a premier school for nationalism and also producing quality education for children in India. This is a very good legacy of the Arya Samaj generally. However, this branch, the Gurukul branch, will become problematic very quickly. Wherein The Gurukul branch, Gurukul branch, the Gurukul branch was headed by a person called Swami Shraddhanand. Shraddhananda. And Swami Shraddhanand was the one who now started to become a little bit problematic because he went through the census report. The census report will come for the first time informally in 1881. Proper census report first time will come in 1901. The proper census in India happened properly in 1881 informal. 1901 first census will come. And when 1901 census report is given, it will say that the Christian population is going up and the Hindu population was going down because of missionary activities. And this will in turn trigger the Gurukul branch and Swami Shraddhanand to develop something called the Shuddhi movement. The Shuddhi movement developed first in response to Christian missionaries, but will become extremely problematic later. Now, the Shuddhi movement is very simply the way you can reconvert to Hinduism. So if you had become a Christian and you want to come back, you come to the Arya Samaj, they will do the Shuddhi movement and bring you back into Hinduism. Now this is a very communally conscious idea, and first it will develop for Christianity, then it will develop for Sikhism, and thereafter it will also go in conflict with Islam. So the Gurukul branch is going to base its understanding on the Christians' missionary activities, and they will develop the Shuddhi Sabha by 1896, which will try to reconvert people back. And close to it, there will another mandal will come, Jat Pat Todakmal, which will basically be under Bhai Parmanand, and his task was that whoever has basically got assimilated or reconverted back, he will rehabilitate them, and he will now not allow them to go back to the caste distinction itself. So very simply, the Arya Samaj becomes problematic later because then the Akali movement, the Sikh movement will start to counteract against the Arya Samajists. So though Dayanand Saraswati had no plan about these things, when he developed it as a very noble institution with Satyat Prakash. He talked about education, he talked about caste, he talked about a lot of things. And DAV was a good culmination of the legacy of Dayanand Saraswati. But Gurukul branch will make Arya Samajists a little bit problematic in the history of Punjab and specifically in the whole Punjab sector, because that will in turn lead to the Arya Samajists becoming more communalistically charged. The Gurukul branch does not exist now, but the Arya Samajists still today follow the Shuddhi movement. Shuddhi activities can still be done. So you can see that you have the Arya Samaj and the Jat Pat Todakmal close to each other, acting so as to counteract what was happening vis-a-vis the other things which are happening. So over a period of time, with the British developing communalism, this will become a problematic legacy of the Arya Samaj. So in a way, the revivalists will become a problem because they will now start to talk about revival of people who had converted. So you have Arya Samaj and Jat Pat Todakmal related to each other, how they are related and what is their agenda and the two branches. You will be able to understand that. Obviously, you don't have to write the controversial elements here, but you have to just talk about how the Shuddhi movement developed or what is the difference between the Gurukul branch and the Lahore branch. Are we clear about that? Assimilating means the people who have gone through Shuddhi now re-assimilate them into the society. That is the point. That is the point. Anil, I know that in DAV schools, the Gurukul branch is not talked about only. The Arya Samajists tend to not, the real Arya Samajists are the DAV ones only. The Gurukul branch became a little bit more and more problematic over a period of time, and that is why the DAV will never talk about the Gurukul branch. So Swami Shraddhanand is not talked about ever. Shuddhi movement, as I told you, is the way you reconvert back to Hinduism. If historically you ever converted to Christianity to something else, you reconvert back into to Hinduism. Lahore Arya Samaj functioned without government support, became a great institution. Gurukul challenged Christian and focused. Yes. Lahore Arya Samaj functioned without government support, became a great institution. Gurukul branch focused on Christian missionaries and became a way of reconversion, and Jat Pat Todakmal realigned or aligned itself with it in that regard. Gurukul branch is not same as Jat Pat Todakmal. Jat Todakmal is a, so basically Shuddhi movement will happen through the Gurukul branch. So now they need to be assimilated. So they go to this mandal so as to be assimilated further. It's like a subsidiary body of it. What happens in Jat Pat Todakmal? Once you have gone through Shuddhi, now you become a Hindu. But then how do you get re-assimilated in society? It's a subsidiary. Think of Jat Pat Todakmal as, see, Shuddhi movement is the college. This is the placement cell, if you understand it. They are basically going to place the people who have gone through Shuddhi in that regard. Now, does it make sense? How English people allowed them to open a kind of private institution. Because Priya, it was teaching English education. And by the time he's opening it up, the British have already given up on the concept of education. So if you remember, there was an emphasis on private schools. That same time they will talk about private schools, the DAV will develop. And DAV will never become a problem with regards to a proper nationalistic institution. It will not become. It will produce a lot of important personalities, but nationalism was never part of the larger concept of DAV. Okay. Can we move on? Last discussion, then we take a break. Yes, Jat Pat Todakmal gives these people who have been reconverted place within the society itself. No, 1 lakh of education is one thing. If you remember, after Wood's dispatch, Hunter Commission said, right, that the primary education, secondary education should go under private schools. If you remember, yeah, last week, Saturday, we discussed this, right? Wohura. So that Hunter Commission, Hunter Commission said that this centralization which we have, that everything needs to be public. The same time Hunter Commission is arguing this, DAV is developing. I'm trying to again link things up. Okay. Now comes Dharma Samaj. Now the problem with Dharma Samaj is very simple. Radhakant Deb, who's the person who founded Radhakant Deb, who founded Dharma Samaj, he hated Raja Ram Mohan Roy. So Raja Ram Mohan Roy said north, so he used to say south. So Raja Ram Mohan Roy said Sati should be abolished. He said no, it should not be abolished. This is basically personal animosity in 1830 against him. He rivaled the Brahmo Samaj. At the same time, he's talking about women's education and Western education. He's collaborating with the British also. Main purpose of Jat Pat Todakmal is to re-assimilate and relocate the people who have been gone through Shuddhi movement. So he's talking about English culture not being good. He's talking about collaboration with the British also. He's talking about education for women, but he's such a big hypocrite that he says that abolition of sati is wrong. So Radhakant Deb is basically a standard jealous man who does not like the way Raja Ram Mohan Roy acts. So he's an anti-Raja Ram Mohan Roy person. If Raja Ram Mohan Roy is saying sati should be abolished, he says sati should be supported. So you have Dharma Samaj. Now, depressed class reform will do after we come from the break itself. It will become too much for 5-10 minutes. It can't be managed. Radhakant Dev is a male. Now, please pay attention. I'm now trying to consolidate Hinduism because depressed class reform is separate, where we'll discuss Jyotiba Phule, Savitribai Phule, Sri Narayan Guru, and Periyar, 4 people. And then we'll move into Parsi reform, into Muslim reform, and into the other reforms of Sikhism. What I want to do here is I want to, in a way, encompass and summarize for you reformists and revivalists. Now, please pay attention. I'm going to try to summarize the basic ideas. See, if I create a very beautiful Venn diagram, like this, 1 second. I leave it to you if it is beautiful or not, but the point is yes. Okay. If we have a Venn diagram like this, in which we have the revivalists, reformists, and the revivalists, the areas in which we intersect is that Amresh, you would be most probably talking about the modules before this and the modules which we are covering. As I told you, I am I don't know how to tell you this. Here there is nothing to teach, only telling you about people. So if you really want me to go through each and every line, that is literally wasting time. So I'm trying to rather give you an understanding. So if I'm fast, I'm actually going the slowest possible. And when it will come to things, I will become more theoretical. Here I can't help it. I'm sorry. You can't do anything with regards to that. That is the basic point I'm trying to say. 3 modules: socialist reform movement, and 2 modules, and the peasant tribal. There's no way. I don't know how to go about it other than going slow like this, discussing each personality, telling you the areas of intersection, and then moving on. So if you have a better way of doing it, you tell me. Because I could easily give you boxes, but I not done that because that would take away a lot of things out of this story. For example, in peasant tribal, I've literally made the tables for you already. So where I know that there's a need for discussion, I'm doing it. So I don't know what you want from this more. So I totally leave it to you. If there's something else which I can do, you tell me. I'm trying to consolidate at every point. I'm trying to give you tables as much as possible. I'm telling you to what to do also in that regard. So reformists and revivalists, you have child marriage, you have widow remarriage, you have caste, and you have education for girls, sati, and the other areas would be you have girls education, you have the concept of caste distinctions, the concept of priests, what we call as misinterpreting the scriptures, and you can also add one more thing, which is that not all of them, but there are within it, there are other things. See, I don't talk about sati. I don't talk about sati, slavery, and infanticide because that is British reform. Now, within the reformists, you have one group which talks about monotheism, no idol worship. But ironically, it is here also monotheism, no idol worship. For them, Vedas is important, and for them, Vedas is also important. But Vedanta is the philosophy, Neo Vedanta. It's about going back to it, going back to it. So I have put these points in different what we call as areas, because going back, because there is subtle differences in their monotheism, subtle differences in their no idol worship, and there's subtle differences in their understanding of the Vedas and Neo Vedanta. Now, reformist revivalists basically in these areas differ a little bit. They differ in emphasis and path on the white issues. The issues I have marked in white, they differ in that. Now you have other issues also. You have other issues also which they're talking about. You have anti-colonial, which is nothing but Young Bengal, and you also have, for example, the Seva Sadan, and the Arya Mahila Samaj, which is basically based on exploited women. Exploited women. We also have the Dharma Samaj. Dharma was here. What was Shiv Narayan Agnihotri's organization called? What was Shiv Narayan Agnihotri's, the atheistic one? Deva Samaj. Yes. Deva Samaj, not Dharma Samaj. Very good. Deva Samaj, atheistic. And then you have certain which are nationalist, which are based on service of this and that. Here you have Dharma Samaj, which is anti-sati, or rather pro-sati. Pro-sati. And you have Shuddhi, DAV, Arya Samaj, and Satyarth Prakash. And related to Shuddhi is very closely Jat Pat Todak Mandal. So what I've tried to do here is that I've tried to show you the differences also and similarities also. So they all differ on certain things and they all converge on certain things. So that difference and convergence is something which you need to understand. But telling you something that there is convergence, it's not that they're separate to each other. There is convergence in a very subtle way also. So they are also talking about monotheism, idol worship, Vedanta. Going by, this is where little bit of connection is between them, but that connection is not fully established. Subtle differences, but then you have other issues also floating around. If you will find any organization, put it in this Venn diagram, and it will mostly fall either on the left, on the right, or in between. Difference in white is that they sound the same on these same issues. They differ in emphasis and path, but are similar on these issues, but not fully similar, but not fully same. For example, as much as they both hated sati, they would not be clear about monotheism the same way they were talking about it. Or idol worship, for example, reformists could mean differently, revivalists could mean differently. So this Venn diagram in that regard tries to summarize everything what we've done with regards to Hindu socio-religious reform. Again, I am doing something which is factual part. I am, according to you, too quick, but according to me, the way I can do it. No, don't make this in the examination because you have to explain these things. Factual part I'm going through. Your task is, and you will send it to me, your task is to make the table, which I made it for Arya Samaj. And the second one is that I am trying to tell you that they are not fundamentally different. They're congruent, they're incongruent at the same point of time. This will help you understand the basic universe of the social reform movement. Done? This is how you make notes. This is literally how you make notes. Right? Congruent means to come together, incongruent means to go together. Okay, so let's take a break. We'll come back at 6:05 and take the story forward. Well, perfect, Aditya. Means quite a lot what you've said. Means quite a lot. Thank you so much. Perfect break system. Like the way you are giving breaks in perfect. Yeah, I have planned it, Priya. I break wherever I need to vis-a-vis, where I know that the topic is becoming heavy, I break it up. Okay. Done. Chalo. See you at 6:05. Thank you. And well, if you're finding this useful, that is the purpose why I'm here. That is the basic point. If I will read out things to you, then what is the point? That's the basic point. And I can guarantee to you one thing: your patience will be rewarded, because the topics here on out are actually quite interesting. From safety valve theory to lightning conductor to what we'll discuss tomorrow is quite interesting. This is one of the more boring parts which I don't like myself also. Okay. See you. Take care.